Namo Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Sarvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvaseka Punyavaditi Patachare Satarine Namaste Sarvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvaseka Punyavaditi Patachare Satarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivakari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivakari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari, Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari, Gopi Janaballabha Girivardhari, Yasodananda Rajajanam Rajajanam Yasodananda Rajajanam Nalana Rajajanam Yamuna Tira Yamuna Tira Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Go Premanandi, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi. Jai Om Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivajakacharya Shtataya Satishraya A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki. Ananta Kota Vaishnavinda ki. Namacharya Shri Haridasa Thakur ki. Prem Se Gaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar. Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath. Shama Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan ki. Sri Vrindavan Dham ki. Sri Mayapur Dham ki. Jagannath Puri Dham ki. Ganga Maya ki. Yamuna Maya ki. Tulsi Devaki, Bhakti Devaki, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Lord Chaitanya's Harinam Sankirtan ki, Brihat Madanga ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Shri Gauranitai ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, all gloriously assembled devotees, all glorious to Sri Guru and Gauranga, all glorious to Srila Prabhupada, Namo Om Vishnu Badaya, Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vacharni Nivasesa Sanyavadi Pasti Chadi Shatani. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevayo. Namo Bhagavate Vasudevayo. Om Jnanatimrandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurnitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale. Swayam Rupagadayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yutapadakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamscha. Sri Rupam Sagajatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam. Sarvetam Savrutam Parijana Sahitam. Krishna Chaitanya Devam. Shri Radha Krishna Vadan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Chahe Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinavando Jagatpate Gopesh Gopikatanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishavanu Sutidevi Paramami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvevacha Patitnam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna. Oh, good evening, everyone. I'm sorry we're maybe a little bit late starting tonight. We didn't prepare anything. We were traveling down from Paris this afternoon and didn't get around to preparing, but everything's already prepared. Krishna's prepared everything. We just have to take the preparation. He's already done all the cooking. We just have to learn how to respect Krishna's kind, let's say, preparation which he's given us, his will in the form of the Bhagavad Gita. So we're going to go to the Bhagavad Gita tonight. So if you do have a Bhagavad Gita with you or a mobile phone which has the Bhagavad Gita or something like that, we're going to look at chapter 12, which is entitled Devotional Service. Please tune in if you want. And we're reading the verses of the 12th chapter and some comments. This is a beautiful chapter. For many, this is the favorite chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It's a very short chapter, but the meaning is not short. It's very precise, but it's unending. It has no limits. Every word Prabhupada said is not different than Krishna, spoken by Krishna himself, for all of us. So text number 1, I'm not going to read the Sanskrit, I'm just going to read the English. Arjuna inquired, which are considered to be the most perfect? Those who are always properly engaged in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal brahmana, the unmanifested. Those very, you could say, maybe not in the Western world, but in India this topic may be quite common. Is the Brahman the source of everything, or is Krishna the source of Brahman, or somebody else the source of Brahman? Or are they a manifestation of Brahman, the mode of goodness, in the world of Maya? Who is the truth? What is the absolute truth? And for those who worship various aspects of the absolute truth, be they in the material world, which is a reflection of the absolute truth, or in the spiritual world, varieties, many varieties are there in the spiritual realm, and different practitioners aspire to attain different goals in the spiritual world or within this world. So who is it? What is the topmost? Who is better? Arjuna wants to know. So not that he doesn't know. But after hearing the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, one may wonder, when Krishna reveals his universal form, unmanifested in the sense to the human eye, and Krishna is revealing this to Arjuna, giving him the eyes to see it. Spiritual life is like that. We don't have a Takshi Krishna Namadina Bhavagayam Indra Mukhe Jiva Swami Vispurchita. Our present conditional senses can only see within certain conditions. And when the conditions change, we can't see. So they're conditional. They're depending on certain conditions. Living entity in this material world is conditional. It's depending on certain conditions for our happiness and our distress. So Arjuna was given the eyes to see this unmanifested form of the Lord within the cosmos. And to many people, this is the unmanifested form of the Absolute. Of course, those who are more spiritually aware know that that is understood as Brahman, or the all-pervasive Brahman. And the Vaishnavas who are still more advanced, so they may start with a universal understanding, a humbling effect of the universal form of the Lord, because it's vast, inconceivably vast, overwhelming beyond any way that we can have any influence or control over such a form of the Lord. A little humbling. The Brahman may not be so humbling as such. But whatever it is, different goals are there from different living entities. And they may also be adamant about their own conclusion, their own perfection, their own perfect path that they follow, etc. And they're all there. Everyone follows my path, Krishna said earlier. Everyone follows my path in all respects. In the 4th chapter, we see this verse. But as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. So yes, every path is given by Krishna. This is a unique thing. No matter what our belief is, no matter what our goals are, it's nothing other than an expansion of Krishna's energies, or he himself, depending on what we're aspiring for. But it's all everything is coming from Krishna. It's not something separate from Krishna. The only thing that appears, in a sense, to be separate is the free will of the living entity when we choose to exercise our free will separate from Krishna, although even that is not actually separate. But it appears to be. This is the nature of Maya. Covers the living entity so that we see things separately from Krishna, but nothing's really separate from Krishna. Everything rests upon Krishna as pulls a strong thread. There is no truth superior to me, Krishna says. Nothing. It's all cosmos. Everything rests on Krishna, although he himself is aloof, as we know. But by his various expansions, he maintains, sustains, creates also through Brahma. But it's actually Krishna who's the active principle, or the active personality, even through Brahma. He's just an instrument. Lord Shiva is another expansive, in this case, guna avatar, another expansion to perform the various pastimes of destruction in this universe. So the Lord appears in different ways through different persons to achieve different purposes. And similarly, he gives faith to different people who have different commitments or convictions, we could say, in their belief or in their conclusions. And Krishna gives them the intelligence to, or he covers their intelligence in such a way that they can't see beyond it, or to conclude that this is the absolute fact. This is it, or we're on the path towards it. And Krishna gives the faith, the intelligence in this way. But they're all Krishna's paths. It's not that there's anything ultimately separated from Krishna. Just the consciousness. We feel the consciousness of being separated from Krishna. So in earlier chapters, of course, Krishna has been emphasizing bhakti and devotional service. He's emphasized Sankhya Yoga also. He's emphasized Hatha Yoga, Kriya Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga. Different yogas have been emphasized throughout Jnana Yoga, Buddha Yoga. Different emphasis has been placed by Krishna, different stages of these different paths, because different people are naturally inclined to different, not just different goals, but different processes at different stages of their lives. But the conclusion, of course, was the devotional service is the ultimate conclusion. And we can see that even in the 11th chapter. If you do have your Gita, you can just drop back a couple of verses in the 11th chapter. You'll see there Krishna says, my dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and can thus be seen directly. Only in this way can you enter into the mysteries of my understanding. They're mysterious. One may have some inkling of an understanding, a little understanding, but not full understanding. That is given by Krishna. And he received as they surrender. The surrendering processes, you can say other processes given by Krishna also a degree of surrender, but the real surrendering process is when we adopt devotional service. This is the means of understanding Krishna. There is no other way. Krishna confirmed that in the previous verse, not by studying the scriptures. None of these various activities can lead one to the actual understanding of the purpose behind the scriptures, the purpose of studying, the purpose of austerity, the purpose of charity, the purpose of sacrifice, the purpose of anything, yoga, everything. The purpose is to ultimately to love Krishna, but at least to understand the absolute truth. This is the goal. We should inquire in this way. We should be searching in our lives, what is the actual point of life? What is the absolute truth? In the Bhagavad Gita, the means of realizing the absolute truth is given by Krishna, systematically, we could say. And concluding in the 18th chapter with a complete absorption in devotional service to Krishna. So Arjuna wants this to be made very clear, which of the paths is higher. We see in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna has primarily discussed Astanga Yoga, Hatha Yoga, like that. At the end, we see Yoginam api sarva shammagatena taratna shudavam vajite sumayuktatamomata. Krishna says, all yogas, one who abides in me with great loving faith, loving devotional service, worshipping me with strong faith. Of all yogas, he's the top, he's the greatest, the most dear to Krishna, and one who's engaged in devotional service. So this is brought up many times in Gita. But still Arjuna wants it to be completely clarified in this particular verse. Now we're going to go to number 2 of the 12th chapter. And there Krishna says, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who fix their minds on my personal form and are always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered to me to be most perfect. They're considered the most. Krishna goes straight in there. He doesn't beat around the bush. He says straight away, those who fix their minds on my personal form and always engage in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be the most perfect. There's perfect, more perfect, and most perfect. Now, some people may be perfect in the sense they may have realized an aspect of the absolute truth. Some may have realized even more intimate nature or the form of the absolute truth endowed, imbued with even more characteristics and qualities. But the most perfect is one who knows Krishna in full. He's the most. And that understanding or that knowledge of Krishna is given by Krishna. We can't let's say, manufacture it or create it by our endeavors. We follow the path which may evoke the mercy of Krishna, but ultimately depends on Krishna's mercy. And then the next verse, text 3, Krishna says, but those who fully worship the unmanifested, that which lies beyond the perception of the senses, the all-pervading, inconceivable, unchanging, fixed, and immovable, the impersonal conception of the absolute truth, by controlling the various senses and being equally disposed to everyone, such persons engaged in the welfare of all at last achieve me. So that's the long path of Bahunam Jamanamante Gyanavatmam Prapajyate. In the earlier 7th chapter, Krishna explains that after many births, those who are on this path of trying to understand the absolute truth, predominantly following the impersonal school, may, after many lifetimes, realize that Krishna is the supreme of all being. He's the source of everything. Such a great soul is extremely rare. Similar thing is said here, that if they follow the path very carefully, controlling their senses and so on and so forth, being equal to everyone, engaged in the welfare of all, at last achieve me. Of course, what form they achieve Krishna is another thing, but in principle this path is given here. But this is a troublesome path, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. For those whose minds are attached to the unmanifested impersonal feature of the Supreme, advancement is very troublesome. To make progress in that discipline is always difficult for those who are embodied, because you've got to control. It's a little different. Devotional service means engaging the senses. The path of impersonal liberation means to detach, to actually control the senses and just withdraw the senses from the sense objects. Now, that's not very easy, especially in this Kali Yuga. I'm sure we can all attest to that one. It's a very difficult path to follow. It's a path of impersonal Brahman. But many people are inclined towards this path. But it's extremely difficult. The mind, as Arjuna said in the 6th chapter, tends to wander. It's more difficult to control than a raging wind. And Krishna himself explains it. Mityachara suchite, indriyasyate. That is one who may restrict our senses from the sense objects, but the taste for sense enjoyment remains in the heart. We have to experience a higher taste. We have to get that param drishta, a higher taste. And then automatically the senses are engaged. They're satisfied. Devotional service. But without that higher taste, it's very hard, because by nature the embodied living entity is Anandamoya Prasad, is searching for pleasure. And if we don't find pleasure, we tend to look for the material if we don't get spiritual pleasure. If we don't have engagement for our senses in devotional service, the senses tend to engage us in other things, be it the mind or the senses. Just to be fully engaged in utilizing our time, everything. So Vaimana Krishna Padava Vindaya Vachansi Vaikuntha Banana Vanane, as Ambarish Maharaj explains, that how to engage one's senses 100% in devotional service, and there's no room for Maya or anything else. Most people, hardly anybody knows this. Most people, even on the path of spiritual life, are thinking it's just to maybe meditate on Om or some similar thing, or some even worse than object of the material world. Sometimes they just meditate on a candle or something. All that's worth. Turn into a candle. But people have a very hard time. We all do. Devotees, everybody. We have a hard time to withdraw our senses from the sense object. Chris says one who appears to be like that, but his mind is dwelling on sense objects, simply deludes himself, and is called a pretender. So the Muda, foolish person. So the actual intelligent thing, Christian Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya says, Krishna Vana Krishna Krishna Sangapanga Supasha Yogya Sanktam Pri. Vijanti made it so that intelligent people in this age of Kali engage themselves, and those with sufficient intelligence engage themselves in hearing and chanting about Krishna and Kirtan. This is the proper engagement of our senses, is to hear and chant, and of course rendering practical devotional service in whatever way we can. It's a proper way to subdue the mind and senses. It's not a question of just nothing. Otherwise, the mind will again become filled up with something. So we have to fill our minds up with Krishna consciousness somehow or another. Maybe thinking on what service we can do, how to do it better. Maybe we're a little bit more Krishna conscious. We're thinking of Krishna's form, name, pastimes, and so on, like that. Thinking of devotees, kirtan. And this way, our hearts or consciousness become cleansed, purified by association with Krishna in various forms. And as our hearts become purified, then things become clear, and it's possible to see things as they are. With dirty covered consciousness, we can't see things as they are. See things in a covered way, perverted way. In the next verse, Krishna says to Arjuna, text 6 and 7, "For those who worship me, giving up all their activities unto me, and being devoted to me without deviation, engaged in devotional service, and always meditating upon me, having fixed their minds upon me, O son of Prita, for them, I am the swift deliverer from the ocean of birth and death." And this is another difference. And Prabhupada would give the example sometimes of a monkey and a kangaroo. How the monkey carries its child. The child has to hang on, basically speaking. Holding on. And it can easily be knocked off or fall off. Either underneath or on top. Holding on. But the kangaroo, the mother is holding on. It's a much safer position. Much safer. It's very hard by one's own endeavor to attain release from this material world. This is not possible without Krishna's mercy, but predominantly the impersonal path is one's intense austerities and adherence to a certain process, very, very, very strictly, beyond
vast majority of people's capacity. Very difficult. And even then, it's so easy to fall from that path, because we know the story there is Vishwamitra Muni, after 60,000 of years, he wasn't fixed. He fell victim of Menaka, the beautiful damsel of the heavenly planets. Just by hearing the tinkling of her ankle bells, Vishwamitra Muni fell from his meditation. He had to start all over again. So that's the problem with that path. With the devotional path, Krishna says, Nehapi Krano Nasha Stipatavaya Viditi. There's no loss or diminution on this path. Even a small amount of advancement saves one from that most dangerous fear of falling down to other species of life, etc. But it's a much safer path because you have Krishna's protection. The impersonal path, Krishna's protecting in one sense, but we're not asking for it. So we're kind of having to fend for ourselves, more or less, in a very risky situation. Very devotional service can also, it's not in itself risky, but when we start to mix and associate in unfavorable ways, it can be dangerous or risky. Risk for preaching is a different thing. But when we meddle with mundane things at the same time, that may be very risky, but otherwise devotional service is a security of Yasya Rendasi. Manasam Karma Manasam Giram. This is a safe path. It's situated in the boat of devotional service. Krishna brings the boat, and everyone's welcome to get on board. As long as we stay on board, we're safe. Maybe a bit rocky sometimes, but we're safe. We jump overboard, we'll get drowned in the ocean of Maya. Like that. So it's considered a much safer path. Holding on, it's like a parent or an orphan. A child with a parent and a child with an orphan. A child with a parent is much safer. A child with the orphan is totally lost, dependent on whatever happens around, fighting with the elements, basically. So the devotees are protected by the divine energy of the Lord. Mama Maya Derachaya, she says in the Bhagavad Gita that this material energy of mine is very hard to overcome, but those who surrender unto me can easily cross beyond it. Because Krishna carries us, this verse says here, swift deliverer in the ocean of birth and death. Krishna wants us back to Godhead. We may not want, but he wants. He's eager to deliver us. We don't want to be delivered. We're like a worm in stool sometimes. We don't want to get out. We're holding on as well. Nice example. Prabhupada gives this example of this king, and he's talking to his ministers, and he's asking them he's thinking, what is this Maya? How does this Maya keep us so bound up in this world, forgetting our spiritual identity? It's incredible. Please explain how this goes on. And they were talking different, but the king was not fully satisfied with what anyone was saying. And then all of a sudden, an old blind man stumbles into the assembly and everyone starts laughing. Hey, tell him to go away. And the king says, no, let him come. And the king poses his doubt to the old man, the blind man. And the man stumbles through the courtyard and he grabs hold of a tree. There's a tree in the courtyard. He grabs the tree and starts screaming, let me go, let me go. Everyone starts laughing because they can see, obviously, the tree's not holding on to him. He's holding on to the tree. Guy must be crazy, they said. The king was pondering this, thinking, wait a minute, there's a lesson to be learned here. I don't think this is just a crazy old man here, doing some stupid thing. And he realized, actually, this man is answering my question. No one else can answer it. He's answering. It's not Maya that keeps us bound up. It's that we are absolutely attached to Maya. We're holding on to Maya. As this man was holding on to the tree and saying, let me go, Maya will let us go very happily. But she's testing us, of course. She doesn't just want to let us go. She wants to make sure we go to Krishna. So she's testing us to really take shelter of Krishna. And Maya will be very happy to let us go. But we have to take shelter of something. We don't take shelter of Maya, we take shelter of something else. He's very happy when someone takes full shelter of the Lord, of Shri Krishna. But Krishna is very kind to such a person who takes shelter. He delivers that devotee from this ocean of birth and death. We don't have to deliver ourselves. We just have to sincerely. It's like the nice story, huh? Prabhupada tells the story of Narada Muni. Narada Muni was traveling the universe and he came to Vaikuntha. And when he came to Vaikuntha, the Lord wanted to show him an example. And actually, before he came to Vaikuntha, he was traveling through the earth planet. He met this Brahmin, very educated, very high-class Brahmin, very learned, very austere, very well respected. So Narada Muni appeared. The Brahmin offered his respects. Oh, Namo Narayanaya. Oh, Narada Muni. Okay, where are you going, Narada? Where are you on a journey? Oh, yes, Narada Muni said to the Brahmin. I'm on my way to Vaikuntha to see Lord Narayan. Oh, Lord Narayan. Very good. Could you do me a favor? Of course I will try. Could you, when you see Lord Narayan, can you just confirm that this is my last birth in this world? I know it is really, but just to confirm, so don't have any doubts. Of course I will, said Narada. Then Narada met one cobbler, engaged in leather, working with leather, considered to be an outcast in Vedic society. But the cobbler was a devotee. He's chanting Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Radha Hare Govinda Jaya Jaya. As he's doing it, hammering away. He's singing. Narada came. Oh, immediately off and said, oh, how fortunate am I? What have I done to deserve this? He was overwhelmed that Narada come to his place. And the Lord actually sent Narada to see these two persons. I know the story a bit more. And just to show what is devotional service. So the cobbler said, oh, dear Narada, I'm so fortunate. How good fortune you come here. What brings you here? And Narada Muni said, well, I'm actually on my way to see Lord Narayan. I'm just passing by. Oh, Lord Narayan, my Lord. Oh, wonderful. Oh, wow, fortunate you are. Narada says, anything you would like me to ask him? And he said, oh, dear Narada, if you could ask him, will I ever be eligible to serve my Lord in the spiritual world? Okay, I'll ask him. So Narada Muni then went to Vaikuntha, and Lord Narayan asked, so you saw the Brahmin and the cobbler? Yes, my Lord. What were they doing? He told them what they were doing. Did they ask any questions? Yes, my Lord. They asked about whether this the last birth or whether they'd ever be able to go back to Godhead, my Lord. Lord Narayan said, okay, you can go there, go back to the earth now and tell them that first one, you tell the Brahmin that he has many, many lifetimes in this world. And you tell the cobbler this is his last lifetime in this world. Narada was a bit surprised. He said, how is this possible? And the Lord said, you will see. They will ask you, what am I doing? You tell them I'm threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. From a material perspective, that's like a dream. So anyway, Narada went, okay, my Lord. He went back to the earth, and first he went to the Brahmin who was there. Om, 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 oh, Narada Muni. Wow, wonderful to see you again. Have you returned from Vaikuntha? Yes, my dear Brahmana. Oh, very, very good. Tell me the news. Tell me the news. A bit mysterious, I must say. Come on, speak. Well, Lord Narayan said you're going to have to spend many, many lifetimes in this world. What, Narada? Nonsense you are talking. I don't believe you've been to Vaikuntha, you nonsense. Impossible. If you've been to Vaikuntha, then you tell me exactly what the Lord was doing. Well, my Lord was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. Am I supposed to believe this nonsense? Go away, get out of here. I don't believe a word you're saying. Go away. Chased him away practically. He was so upset. Narada could understand there was a little pride in his heart. And he came to the house of the cobbler. Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya. Narada, oh Narada, you've come to my home. Cobbler bowed down, full of obeisances. Oh, how fortunate. I'm trying to take the dust of his feet. Oh, did you go, my dear Narada, did you go to Vaikuntha? Please tell me about Lord Narayan. What happened? Seeing very humility. Well, I asked a question of him first. Oh, is there any hope for a wretched creature like myself? Well, my dear cobbler, you're very fortunate. The Lord said, you'll go back to Godhead at the end of this lifetime. Oh, no, that's not possible. I'm the most sinful of persons. How can this be possible? Oh, no, the Lord is so merciful, but this is too merciful. Anyway, talk about something else. Tell me something about it. What was he doing? What was he doing? And Narada said, wow. He was threading an elephant through the eye of a needle. Oh, how wonderful. Oh, that's wonderful. Tell me more, tell me more. Hold on, cobbler. Do you believe it? What do you mean, do it? Of course. Believe it? What do you mean, believe it? The Lord can do anything he likes. To thread an elephant through the eye of a needle is nothing for my Lord. Nothing. And Narada was surprised. And they said, just see. The cobbler picked up a little tiny banyan seed. Said, just see the Lord, this little tiny seed has put all the ingredients, the potency to create a huge banyan tree. What is the difficulty for the Lord to thread an elephant through the eye of a needle? He's completely absolute faith in the Lord. Narada really could now understand why the Lord said what he did. This is the nature of the devotee. When Krishna sees that humble attitude, that heart which has complete dependence upon him, he takes the devotee back to Godhead. But as long as we still have our ulterior motives, our other ambitions, as long as we're still identifying ourselves with the body and trying to adjust the world for our bodily and mental needs, we have a little bit more work to do, a little few more lessons to learn, a little more practice, etc. A lot of mercy required. The path back to Godhead is a path of mercy, totally depending on mercy. Prabhupada said in the Bhagavad Gita, he writes, awakening of our dormant love for Krishna does not at all depend upon the mechanical system of hearing and chanting, but depends wholly and solely upon the mercy of the Lord. Somehow or other we have to get the mercy of the Lord. That mercy is most available through his devotees. So we'll just read the next verse. Be pleased, the devotees, Krishna is pleased. You please a man by pleasing his son or his dog. So we're jumping on now to text number 8. Just fix your mind, Krishna says. Just fix your mind upon me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Engage all of your intelligence in me. Thus you will live in me always without a doubt. Wouldn't that be nice? Constantly fix our mind on Krishna. We all know how difficult that is. Sometimes we may be, in a situation where we have some focus on Krishna, but most of the time we're diverted into other thoughts, into other places, etc. Mind's not fixed. We try chanting. We still, in one sense, we're remembering Krishna. In another sense, we're not exactly. We're just chanting mechanically. Mechanical chanting is one thing. But we should be, if we're attentive while we chant, hear the name. Because the name is no different than Krishna. We're actually meditating on Krishna. We're remembering Krishna, even if we're not consciously thinking, this is Krishna, but we're paying attention to Krishna. So we're remembering him in the form of the name. But if we're chanting mechanically or offensively, we're not paying attention. It's not so effective. There's still effect there, but it's not so effective. The relationship won't develop like that very easily. We may become purified, enabling us to come to a plane or a platform where we can start actually developing a relationship more than just, say, lip service or mechanical or external, but something more personal. So here, fixing our mind on Krishna, it's not easy. The way we said earlier on, to fully engage our senses in the service of Krishna, this is how we come to this platform. This is the platform of Ihayasya Hridasya. It's the liberated platform. We just have to stay on that platform and try to remain Mamchayaga Vicharana Bhakti Yogena Sevde Sugunam Sati Chaitanam Bhuya Kalpate, not fall down, situate on this spiritual platform, don't fall down in any circumstances. This is the platform, and we come to the spiritual platform. We're on the boat leading to that spiritual platform, brahmana, or spiritual realization. In the next verse, Krishna says, "My dear Arjuna," so that was the first one, the top perfection of practice is to fix the mind always on Krishna. "If you cannot fix your mind on me without deviation, then follow the regulated principles of Bhakti Yoga. In this way, develop a desire to attain me." So this is probably levels many of us are trying to practice the process of Bhakti Yoga. Can't fix our mind, but we try to follow the regulated principles of Bhakti Yoga, because by doing this, this is the path given by Krishna. So it's a surrender to Krishna. It's not full surrender, but it's the path leading to full surrender, because it's the path given by Krishna himself. It's not a manufactured path or a concocted path. It's not, it is the path given by Krishna. So we take shelter of that path. All paths are given by Krishna. We take the shelter of the path whereby Krishna, recommending here the path which will lead to the path of perfection, devotional service. And then Krishna says in text number 10, "If you cannot practice the regulations of Bhakti Yoga, then just try to work for me. Because by working for me, you will come to the perfect state." Now, some of you may be also feeling like we're at this stage where we can't even follow strictly the regulated principles. Maybe some, maybe none, but we like to work for Krishna. I had a letter from someone the other day, a Buddhist. They said, "Can I still serve Krishna as a Buddhist? Can I still do some service?" Of course you can. Everyone can. It might not be with the right understanding or the right knowledge, but there's something inside there beginning. Or not just beginning, but something quite, in one sense, a little developed. We want to work for Krishna, consciously want to work for Krishna, even though we're not thinking that he's the eternal personality of Godhead. We might not think the goal is to develop my love for Krishna. I just want to do service. For some reason, I have an attraction for it. The nature of service is very powerful, and I'm sure we will experience that. It can transform people's consciousness tremendously when we're engaged in service. Attitude is important, but even if the attitude is not in place, just the service itself will have its effect. One lady, she was in Brisbane. I don't think anyone from Brisbane with us tonight, maybe one. But she was the mother of one devotee, Yogi, I think his name is, who joined in Brisbane, and the mother and father were Christians, and they were very gentle people. They were very kind. Just nice people. So they didn't make a big scene, but they were very surprised and rather concerned that their son had joined what we would say a dangerous sect, something outside of Christianity. So they were going to think how to bring him out of this, how to bring him home, back to his senses. So they would go regularly to the temple to see him. He's a sweet person, very sweet. And they would go just to find out how to see how to naturally bring him out. He could make his own decision. The devotees were very nice to this mom and dad, and they were coming for weeks and months like this. And one day, the wife told me this herself. She said one day it was time they used to go to the temple every Sunday to try to talk to him and other devotees to try to find some faults or whatever it was, some loophole. So this Sunday, the husband was late. He was in the bathroom, some call of nature. And the wife said, "Hurry up," whatever his name was, Bob or whatever. "Hurry up, Bob, hurry up, we're running late." "Oh, I know, Elsie, we're running late, but what can I do? I'm in the bathroom." "Don't be long," she's saying. And after a while, he comes down and he says, "Sorry I kept you waiting. What to do? Anyway, let's go. And Elsie said to him, "You know what? I just realized I'm not going to the temple to see our son now. I want to go, she said. I want to go. And he said, well, tell you the truth, so do I. So they started going, on their own choice, not for another motive. And after a while, they asked if they were quite old. They were old in those days, in the 50s. So they asked if they could do some service. Temple commander asked her if she would kindly clean all the windows. Oh, no, please. I hate cleaning windows. I always leave that to Bob. But what to do? I said, that's what needs to be done. Okay, I'll give it a go. 2 hours later, she came back. She said, so how did it go? She said, I don't know what happened, she said. I don't know what happened. I've never felt so happy in my life cleaning those windows. They were just windows. No, they weren't just windows, she said. She said, I think they were special windows. Those were Krishna's windows, she said. Krishna's windows. I think that's why I felt so much pleasure. She said like that. So she's getting a taste for service. Prabhupada writes in the beginning, in the early chapter, second chapter of Gita, he said, the first taste we may get is a taste for the service itself. Taste for the service. Devotional services. It may not be, you could say, in its full blossom state of consciousness, but still Bhakti has appeared in this world to give her association, to give us a chance to reconnect with Krishna. Bhakti has appeared. And then maybe we don't see her very well, but she's appeared to everyone, giving everyone an opportunity to associate with her and become purified. So if someone ought to get that, whether knowingly or unknowingly, an opportunity to associate with Bhakti Devi, and where our spiritual life is assured, it's just a matter of time, that's all. A little drop of that ocean of devotion. And it's just a matter of time before it manifests into a full blossom tree of Bhakti in our hearts. So we read on. If whoever, so working for Krishna is a very good one and a very popular one. Many people, and this is the science of devotional service, how to engage people according to their present level of mature spiritual advancement and their particular material propensities and so on, attachments and what have you, whatever situation they're in. How can we make devotional service attractive to that person? Not expecting them to shave their head, chant 16 rounds and follow 4 regulated principles. That may not be the case. And certainly it won't be the case that they'll be immediately, their anuraga or their spontaneous and loving ecstatic emotions manifest just by hearing about Krishna. We cannot expect that. And we cannot expect that they're going to immediately follow, or even we immediately follow all these principles or maintain following. But at least we can work for Krishna, do some service to assist the spreading of Krishna consciousness. Whatever it may be, many things. Manual labor, maybe giving advice on certain technical things, or donating money. It could be any sort of thing. It could be many things. You can even distribute books if you're inspired at that point of stage, even though we may not be fully engaged in devotional practices. Still, the spirit sharing this with others may be strong. We may want to do them. And then Krishna says, giving up the results. If however you are unable to work in this consciousness of me, then try to act giving up all the results of your work and try to be self-situated. In other words, if we can't even work for Krishna, Krishna is really going down there. He said, then at least work selflessly and give the fruits of your work to some charity, Prabhupada explains in the purport. And this in the long run will be gradually beneficial. It's Krishna's words. We can't take those away. So it's not that that's a spiritual activity, but it may not guarantee it, but it gives the living entity a chance, more of a chance to come to the mode of goodness. And the mode of goodness seems generally supposed to be clearer. And yes, a better situation to understand Krishna consciousness. If you cannot take to this practice, then engage yourself in the cultivation of knowledge. Pursuit of knowledge, trying to understand, maybe speculative. It's nonetheless something, searching for something higher. Better than knowledge, however, is meditation, and better than meditation is renunciation of the fruits of action, for by such renunciation one can attain peace of mind, because one is taking shelter of Krishna. engaging one's senses in Krishna's service, meditating on what? That depends what we're meditating on, because it generally infers one is controlling one's mind and senses. So, okay, one thing. And use a cultivation of knowledge, meditation, and acting by giving up the fruits of one's work, but not just, as the last point mentioned here, just for the sake of it, but in relationship with Krishna. This is the proper way of renunciation. Nashya kampa karyam karma otya. So sannyasi yogi charan in the Chatriya. Krishna says in the 6th chapter how real renunciation, one who acts, performs his duty without attachment to the fruits of the work, is the actual renunciate, not one who does nothing or tries to do nothing. Actually, the one who, in the 2nd chapter, 4th chapter, we see a description there of karma, vikarma, action, reaction, where activities have no reaction, and so on and so forth. So devotional service has no reaction. Whereas even if we stop work, we're still experiencing reactions as such. We're not getting free from the cycle of reaction. Oh, exactly. But by engaging in devotional service, one is considered to be engaged in karma activities that have no reaction. Whereas other activities, even if they are following the religious principles, they're still karma, there's a reaction, be it good reaction, whatever. The mind is still active in thinking of material things, almost inevitably anyway. We'll go on to the next verse, text 13 and 14. There can be no peace for those who are still aspiring. They're not on the platform of perfection. They haven't reached the most perfect stage. They're still hankering for something. So there's no peace of mind in such a person. It may be becoming more peaceful, but it's not yet peace of mind. Only when we're fully reposed, our devotion is fully reposed at the lotus feet of Krishna, we can be fully peaceful. Having realized Krishna as the friend of everyone, the proprietor of everyone, the goal of all of our works and sacrifices. If you cannot take to this process and engage with self, we read that. Text number 13, 14. One who is not, now a beautiful section where Krishna describes those who are dear to him. As we want to become dear to Krishna. We like to become dear to a famous person, a rich person, a beautiful person, whatever. We want to speak of Krishna. One who is not envious, but is a kind friend of all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me. Such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. Quite a list there. It's quite an expensive shopping list, you could say. nice to have, but not so easy to say manifest or to see it manifesting in ourselves. Free of false ego. We don't think ourselves a proprietor. We're friends to all living entities. We're not envious. Equal with happiness and distress, tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, engaged in devotional service with determination, mind and intelligence fixed on me. This is partly the stage of one who is at least beyond Nishta, one who's fixed in their devotional service, undisturbed by the anarthas or the material desires and material whatever ambitions that we may have. He for whom no one is put into difficulty and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety is very dear to me. So the same thing comes up again, as being equipoised, undisturbed by the dualities of this world. As you're fixed on Krishna, so not disturbed by the dualities of this world. My devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result is very dear to me. And it's not depending on anything in this world, utilizing everything they can in this world in the service of Krishna, but not depending on it. We tend to become very dependent, because by nature we're looking for shelter, but to become dependent on the material world or on the fruits of one's work within this material world is a very fallible situation, risky, fallible situation, because everything's temporary in this world. So we have to take that. The real shelter is not in this material world. Dependency in this material. We should become, one of the symptoms of surrender is to be fully dependent on Krishna's mercy. So we have to practice reminding ourselves, whatever it is, to become dependent upon Krishna's mercy. In this day and age we're in now, it's like you never know what's going to happen next any time, but especially right now, you can't necessarily depend on things. Things are changing, whatever it may be, financially, economically, socially, internationally, health-wise. So many things we can and can't do. So many things are changing. Our freedom is being restricted, you could say. Next verse 17. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such a devotee is very dear to me. Not attached. We're always attached to, according to the mode of nature, and we're attached to different things in this world. One person in one mode sees it as good, and another person sees it as bad because they're in a different mode. And we become very attached to, whatever satisfies us in that particular mode of nature. Her life is molded around it practically. Whereas a pure devotee is not. He's not anyway obligated. There's no auspiciousness in this material world for one who self-realizes, because the material world means it's a place of birth and death. No matter where you go, even in the heavens, even the topmost planets of the universe, birth and death take place. Maybe not so much old age and disease, but still death is there. It's still an unwanted experience, and fear is there, of course, simultaneously. They can't avoid that. It's a nature constitution of the material world, to suffer. Kalyama Shashvatam, Krishna says. A place of temporary suffering, temporary place full of suffering. That's the constitution, that's the nature of this world. We try not to accept it, or we fight against it, adjust it if we can. But that's actually the constitution of being in the material world. This Maya, this Maya energy. So, why spend one's time trying to fight against that which we cannot win? There's no way we can win against the universal swan, forget it. We may be the best boxer on the planet, or wrestler, or whatever, weightlifter. There's nothing compared to Krishna, not even an ant compared to Krishna. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such a devotee is very dear to me. They're very attached to certain things. We spend our life sometimes trying to achieve it. The devotee should not spend their life. We have to do the needful, certain amount of obviously exercising a certain amount of responsibility in this world, but not that we spend our whole life doing that. We have more important things to do. We have to let go of things sometimes and move on. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent, he doesn't talk any mundane topics, and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge and who is engaged in devotional service, such a person is very dear to me. And the last verse is a short chapter, the shortest in the Gita. The last verse, those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. So that's the 12th chapter. How to become dear to Krishna. We associate with someone who is dear to Krishna. And how we associate, we try to follow their instructions, whatever they may be. In this way, Krishna is very pleased. You're assisting my dear devotee. As Prabhupada said, you give a piece of chocolate to the sun is very happy, the Prabhupada is very happy. Or you pat the dog on the head, it's very nice. Usually when people meet each other nowadays, they got dogs, at least in the West. They pat each other's dogs on the head and rub them and things like this. This is a sign of a loving relationship between humans. Although the dogs were getting the attention mostly. So I think we'll finish there. It's 8, 9, 7:15 here, 6:15 in England, different times in America, different times in India, and Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, wherever you are. Times are different, but whatever it is. I'll stop now and open up for questions. If anyone would like to share any questions, please do so on this subject matter tonight. Any questions, please feel free to ask. I can see devotees in India, devotee in Sydney, in Scotland, a few devotees in Scotland, a few devotees in America, Denmark, Ireland, France, not sure, maybe Philippines, maybe, I don't know, New Zealand, Germany, and New Zealand, and Australia, New Zealand, Scotland, America, different places, Czech Republic, and some we can't tell because we don't know, just some name, just some name of the phone. So thank you all very much, and some questions coming, I hope. I don't know if there's a question or so. Okay, how do we engage in devotional service with full determination? Well, where does determination come from? It comes from the soul. By nature, the soul is determined. We may be determined to forget Krishna. We may be determined for something else. Determinate means not stopping. Don't stop. There are different ways which we've been, let's say, our acharyas have given, whereby determination can become stronger. And one of my favorites is by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He describes how hearing about the teachings from pastimes of great devotees like Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and Haridas Thakur, and it could be any of the great devotees, including Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself, Prabhupada, any of them. By hearing about them, he says, this helps to awaken in our hearts determination, confidence, and satisfaction. So determination to carry on, and I'm sure many of us have experienced that. Sometimes we feel a bit down, and say, oh, what's the point? Then we read the Lilamrita, Prabhupada Lilamrita, and suddenly you realize what Prabhupada went through, what he did for us, how much he sacrificed, the struggles he went through. Determined, he never gave up. He could have easily, given up devotional service, because he could have easily given up his mission, because he was alone. Basically speaking, from the external point of view, he was alone. No one was supporting him at all. Nobody, really. But he carried on. He was determined. And Prabhupada gives the example of a sparrow that laid its eggs on the ocean. This is in the Bhagavad Gita, actually. How determined that sparrow was. So it's also important to another aspect there is that the sparrow was very attached to its eggs, obviously. And it was determined against all odds, impossible, hope against hope. The sparrow wanted to swallow the ocean, laughed its head off at the sparrow, you crazy sparrow. But the sparrow was so determined that Garuda came along and helped. So, because the sparrow had a fixed goal, he knew his goal. So we have to keep the goal in mind. Many times we forget the goal. We're plowing on, doing this, that, the other. We forget what we're doing. We forget we're here to develop our love of Krishna, to please Krishna. And then we may remember some of the externals. My job right now is to finish this offering on time. But our mind is not necessarily, that's one way. You have a time frame. You have to work within a time frame. But it may not be quite that we have the goal in mind. That's not like a stage, a goal within a goal. But keep the final goal in mind. We come here to become Krishna conscious. Become Krishna conscious. Other ways, Maybe with prayer. We can pray for the Lord, pray for determination to carry on in our devotional service. Prabhupada gave different prayers. Like, my dear Lord, please, you're in my heart. Please remind me to always chant your holy names. Otherwise, I won't be able to. Appealing to the Lord like this. Please help me to be determined to chant your holy names more and more and more. And obviously, if we're associating with devotees, this is a practice, the main one, to associate with devotees, and together we do service, enlivening each other, enthusing each other, read about Krishna consciousness, read the Bhagavad Gita, read the Bhagavatam, hear the Shastras in the association of devotees, and we develop enthusiasm or determination to carry on in enthusiastic service like that. And people work very hard in jobs. Why? Because they have a goal. Most people are not working hard because they like what they're doing. Some people maybe, but they may have another motive. Maybe they have pride. Maybe they really want to help people. But in most cases, they're determined to work hard so they can get some fruits for themselves. They get some money, whatever it is, attain a better position in society. They're determined. They have a goal. And therefore, they're very determined to reach the goal. And so stop. We have to have our goals. Without a goal, you're not going to win the game. You may be a good player, but you're not going to win the game if we don't know what the goal is. It's simple logic. So we have to know our goals also, and then how to reach that goal in the association of devotees. What's the technique of devotional service? Let's put my glasses on. Is it the case that a devotee is free from envy only because they feel they have everything? Well, yeah, I mean, it depends what I mean. When we say we feel we have everything, yes, self-satisfied. Have everything according to our need. That is, spiritually speaking, the soul has everything in one sense. We're just covered over. But on the path of devotional service, you feel completely contented that we don't have to gain anything from anyone else, only devotional service. There may be an element of envy there when somebody appears to have more devotional service than we do. That's just an immature state of understanding, maybe. It may be an inspirational one, too, if the envy is not with any malice. It's just, I wish I could serve as nicely as they are, or I have the enthusiasm they do, or something. That type of, maybe, could say some kind of envy, but it's not necessarily unfavorable, because it's not with any vindictive or negative connotations. It's simply that we wish we could do as well as they do to bring pleasure to Krishna. So yes, if we're full as the cup overfloweth, so Jesus says, or somebody says in the Bible, the cup overfloweth. So naturally, there's no room for anything else. What to speak of envy in the consciousness of someone who's fully engaged in devotional service. If we're still envious of others and we're so-called engaged in devotional service, we're not engaged in real devotional service. There's some kind of activity going on, maybe some kind of practice is going on, but we have to root out the envy. And how do we root out the envy? Envy is the other side of the same coin as pride. One side is pride, the other side is envy. They have the same coin, just different sides. By putting Krishna in the center, this is the means of devotional service. By deity worship is meant to be very important in the sense that we offer everything to the deities. Chanting Krishna's name attentively, whatever the mind says, just tell it to shut up and try to hear the sound of the holy name attentively. This will cleanse our hearts of this envy. Envy is just seeing things separately from Krishna, seeing ourselves in the center and Krishna, taking Krishna out of the picture and putting ourselves in the picture. So being full in devotional service means, it doesn't just mean being fully engaged. That certainly is the stage which we're aspiring for now, but ultimately it means full in Krishna consciousness, not just busy doing things, but at the same time we're aspiring for recognition, we're aspiring for position, we're aspiring for the results of our work, the fruits of our work, we're aspiring for freedom from suffering. All these things are secondary or subsidiaries. Some of them may be detrimental even. And to become free of all other motives other than that which is pleasing to Krishna. So we can develop this freedom from envy when we associate with someone who's free from envy and we serve that person. If we really want to become free of envy, we have to have the desire also. The desire has to be there. to put the will of the Supreme Lord through the media of the pure devotee in the heart. As Prabhupada did, he got the order from his guru to preach Krishna consciousness. And I'm sure we've all experienced little doses of that. When you're happily engaged in your service, you don't have any envious thoughts towards anyone else, practically speaking. You're just satisfied. This is a spiritual world. Prabhupada says spiritual world means no envy. So in that sense, one is fully engaged properly in their devotional activities, is in one sense on the Brahman platform, spiritual platform. Prabhupada said that clearly. This is the spiritual platform. It's just a matter of maturing. And in that platform, there is no room for it. There's no question of envy as such. And there may be some aspiration to follow in the footsteps of another devotee to try to serve as nicely as they are, but no, it's not envy. Well, envy is removed by Krishna. And no matter what we do, we can't necessarily be free of it, but we do what we're meant to do to try to no longer act in an envious way. And when we don't act in an envious way, we gradually our envious tendencies will be dissolved by the mercy of Krishna. He cleanses the heart for those who serve as pure devotees. Krishna cleanses these tendencies away. Anything else? Who's out there? Hey, there they are in Strasbourg. They're having kirtan. They're not listening to the class. They're having a program. I see. There's a program going on out there. Nectar. Hare Krishna Janananda. Anything else? I hope you're all taking advantage of whatever situation we're in right now. Maybe some of you are in some kind of lockdown situation still, I don't know. Whatever it is, take advantage of the situation we're in. See that Krishna's hand, some others working. Help us to turn to him and not turn just to the material energy for our solutions, but turn to Krishna. And Krishna, as they surrender, he'll reward you. He'll reward us. Hare Krishna. So thank you, Hare Krishna. So we'll have a little kirtan. As I say, we're a little bit quite ready tonight. With your permission, we'll have some kirtan. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, bolo, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanande. Hare Krishna. Jai Haribo. Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada ki jai. Haribo. Haribo. Haribo.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Hare
Krishna.
Haribo. Hare Krishna. Haribo.
Haribo.
Haribo. Thank you.
Jai Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Hare Krishna.
I just unmuted. Yeah.